Back on the Boulevard Thursday, May 30th, as always, here to prove to you there is no such thing as football season. We are presented by the Believe Network tonight. Welcome in to the final four-game slate of the UFL season. Man, it really flew by just to think. Seems like yesterday we were hearing the news of Wade Phillips and his staff packing up from Houston and moving on to San Antonio and bringing a bus full of former Houston Roughnecks with him, while Anthony Becht & Co. scouted out that UFL dispersal draft and revamped their whole secondary and stacked their receiving core for A.J. McCarron. And now months later, here we are, both St. Louis and San Antonio on the hunt for home field advantage, with this week's winner guaranteed to host the XFL Conference Championship game. And the question remains, will AJ be rested and ready, or will that ankle be enough of a problem to shake up the UFL Saturday? Let's say hello to the producer, director, and owner of Studio Z, Chris Zook. Zook, I did some reflecting, and I just realized that tonight will be the last time you have to hear me talk about the DC Defenders until 2025. So hats off to you, my friend.
I don't believe it at all. I thought you were reflecting on why you were a DC fan in general, but, you know.
Not our year, but still a chance to get to 500. Of course, I'll have a full breakdown for you of Arlington and DC, which Zook will probably fall asleep during. But we're going to get it in there on tonight's show. Who's it going to be? Two domes, only one can host the XFL Conference Championship. These teams will have a guaranteed third meeting coming up on June 9th. And we're lucky enough to get a preview of it on Saturday afternoon. So excited for that. Also, something other than home field will be on the line in the UFL this weekend. The number one draft pick in 2025 is up for grabs in the battle of the basement. 1-8 Memphis and 1-8 Houston, and an absolute matchup for the sickos. So, of course, we're going to break that down for you as best we can. And to round out the UFL regular season, we'll catch up with DC's Malik Fisher as he prepares for his final NFL audition tape against Arlington. And as always, we'll try to give you some winners for Week 10. And remember, this is not financial advice, but technically, this is your last chance to cash that pesky four-leg parlay that you've been trying to hit all season in the UFL and just haven't been able to. Now's your chance. So if you've been dreaming about that, maybe we can help you tonight. If you're with us on YouTube, drop us a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're with us on Twitter or X, hit us with a retweet. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Zook, let's take a quick glance at our UFL standings heading into the final week of the regular season. Birmingham, off their first loss in 15 games, is 8-1 in first place in the USFL Conference. Michigan, second place at 7-2. A scenario did come out today. Now, remember, Birmingham is locked into the home field because of a scheduling conflict in Ford Field in Michigan. However, the UFL still put out the scenario that if Michigan were to beat Birmingham by 23 or more points, Zook, they would get the number one seed, which for all that really matters is the coin toss. That doesn't exist in the UFL. Who's going to get to defer, elect to receive, or kick is really everything on the line there. So that's crazy to me.
Yeah, but home team gets to choose.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So even if
will they be considered the home team?
Yeah. So essentially, Michigan,
Okay.
if they were to win by 23, which again we're on Mars here. If Michigan were to win by 23, they get to choose and they get to wear their home uniform in Birmingham. Memphis and Houston are 1-8. On the XFL side, it's San Antonio in sole possession of first place at 7-2. St. Louis is 6-3. Battlehawks will have a chance to lock up home field with a win. DC is 4-5, and Arlington is 2-7. All right. Last chance we'll get to talk about 4 games on the show, so let's jump right into it. Lead things off on Saturday afternoon in Birmingham. This game was actually originally slotted for 11 a.m. local time, but I think the league threw the home fans a little bit of a bone here, and they pushed it back until 1 p.m. local kickoff. I don't know exactly what went into that, but, give them some time to tailgate maybe. It's the Panthers and the Stallions. Birmingham, the 8-point home favorites in this one. Total sitting at 43.5. Forecast for the Heart of Dixie in this one, I have it at 77 and a chance of scattered thunderstorms. In the last meeting between these two teams, which we're going to go ahead, Zook, and throw up just the throwback footage of week 2 here. The Stallions started Matt Corral, but they used Adrian Martinez in an equal role. So the quarterbacks really split work all afternoon in that one. And we'll have to see how Skip Holtz will approach the quarterback situation in this one. I don't know. Again, these teams are guaranteed a third meeting exactly 1 week after this game. It'll actually happen in the same stadium in Birmingham. So I'm really not sure if there's a reason to play Adrian Martinez. Skip Holtz did make some comments in the post game after the loss to San Antonio. And his quote was, "I would love to play Matt." And that's something that we will strongly consider. But obviously, they hadn't talked about it yet. So I'm curious. I know I've sat here really all season and talked up Matt Corral about, when's the sit game for Martinez coming, as Skip Holtz referred to it. So we'll wait for an official starter to be named. The tough part about doing these live shows on a Thursday night is we're probably going to get depth charts later in the evening. So if you are watching this back on Friday, Saturday morning, whatever, go ahead and look for the latest news on Twitter or check out the UFL.com for that information. But I think, really either way here, it's not too much of a game changer, whether it's Corral or Martinez. It is kind of a weird spot for Birmingham. I feel like it's really strange to break this game down from a betting perspective in general. On a normal week in the UFL season, I would call for a pretty large bounce back for the Stallions here, but they are coming off their first loss of the season, right? So it kind of sets up that way, but this just feels like a scrimmage to me. It doesn't really have a game feel, and you can look at it as an NFL audition tape for a lot of these guys who are going to be getting invite to training camps, but as coaches, you can't really look at that. You have to take a sizable risk here if you're gonna start everybody that's impactful to your team in a spot like this. So there's no more $1,000 weekly win bonus like there was in the XFL last year. So that's even less incentive to play your starters. So I don't really know what to expect. I know it's really not going to look anything like this first meeting that you're seeing some throwback highlights of now. In this meeting, back in week 2, Birmingham goes, I think, 1 of 6 in the red zone. They were terrible. They were 2 of 10 on third down. Martinez fumbled right on the goal line. They were lucky to get it back. Matt Corral threw a pick late in the game, and they just kind of played with their food. And this team's a lot different now, right? They've developed offensively, and I guess so has Michigan. But Michigan started the season very strong with that win over St. Louis, and they played well against Birmingham in week 2. And then I think they had that game against San Antonio where it's probably their worst game of the season, and since then they've been on a 5-game winning streak. So a little bit of a roller coaster ride for both of these teams, but yeah, I think Birmingham is going to play better than they did in the first matchup. That offense has come a long way. I know they did hit that speed bump in San Antonio. I don't think it defines the offense. I'm more thinking it was a bad spot for this team last week. It's still the number 1 total offense in the league from a statistical perspective. And I'll go back to this time and time again. They've stayed extremely balanced. They run the ball 49% of the time. And I'm sure if you're Ricky Person or CJ Marable, you weren't happy with your performance last weekend, and neither were the coaches. They combined for just 16 yards on 9 carries. That's got to get better. And for Michigan defensively, 6 starters listed on the injury report early this week. So I do give the edge to the Stallions offense here. When it comes to the Michigan offense, I think they've got sort of a puzzle to solve when it comes to their starting quarterback position. And I've been vocal about Bryce Perkins ever since they signed the guy. I know he's become very popular with Panthers fans the last few weeks. And even if we're not really focusing on, okay, this week we're going to do everything it takes to win, and maybe you'd rather instead push all your chips in on the USFL championship game next week, it still makes sense to me to give Bryce Perkins a warm-up here. Without him, I really don't see Michigan's path to a championship in the UFL. I think they have to have him here. They are more than one player, of course. They're one of the most physical teams in the league. They're limping into this game a little banged up. Already lost Wes Hills a couple weeks ago. Now some more key guys. Matt Colburn, Marcus Sims, both listed on the injury report this week. I think they should both be fine. Sims has missed a ton of practices due to injuries all year, so I think they've kind of been just resting him throughout the week. And Colburn is limited, but, he did get banged up a little bit. He was not very good against Houston last week. 6 carries for 14 yards, and, you're going to have to lean on him a little bit as a team that likes to run the ball if you're going to go both Danny Etling and Perkins. And Mike Nolan even came out and said E.J. Perry should be off IR and available. So that could be a total monkey wrench into this whole thing. But it's Perkins or nothing for me. Michigan is the only team in the league who runs more than they throw the ball. They're at 50% run rate. They have mobile quarterbacks, like we said, with Etling and Perkins to get the job done. They just got to pick one and stick with that quarterback. I know Skip Holtz started this season for Birmingham hell-bent on this 2-quarterback system, and even he settled on a starter after Martinez did enough to earn the job. So now it's Mike Nolan's turn to not be a politician, just give one guy the start and ride with him, win or lose. Listen to the Bryce Perkins stat line. This is 3 games of limited action. 30 of 37, 343 yards, which is actually good for 11 yards of completion. He also has 17 carries for 144 yards on the ground. That's 8.5 yards a carry. So with 4 touchdowns in 3 games, again, didn't even play the whole games. So he is literally the Panthers version of Adrian Martinez. Like, you could call him Martinez light at this point, and I would be okay with that comparison. People forget Bryce Perkins had 3 years with Sean McVay, and that's showing with that experience, one of the best offensive minds in football. So we'll see what they do, and if there's a path for Perkins to become the full-time starter. As far as Birmingham defensively, DeMarcus Gates has not practiced this week. Have to imagine they'll rest him for the rest of the regular season slate until they get into the playoffs. Not sure what the staff is going to do with safety Kenny Robinson. He's got to be in the doghouse after those 2 back-breaking personal fouls last week. You had the hit on Latimer, the hit on Akers on a 3rd and 26, gave San Antonio the ball right at the goal line. And we, again, learned from Skip Holtz this week on radio. Defensive coordinator John Chavis no longer with the team for medical reasons. So the Stallions have gone ahead and hired Anthony Blevins, who some of you remember that name because he had a perfect record of 0-0 as the head coach of the Vegas Vipers. He was hired after Rod Woodson got let go and then never coached a game because the Vipers went away. So he found himself back in the mix, which is great to see because I know we had talked about him and would he get his NFL job back? He's now the defensive coordinator for this playoff run. So the Stallions are going to be the pick for me here, Zook, but from a betting perspective, be warned, the Stallions have not covered since week 6. Who you got?
I got the Stallions. We're going with the ponies, baby.
Yeah, I was interested if you would maybe do a situation where Panthers win this week, Stallions win next week, but you're riding them the rest of the way, I assume. At least in the USFL side.
We're not going to say that. We're not going to get there. What I will say is that I feel off of a loss. I don't care who starts, who they rest. I think that team is really going to be like, we're going to rebound. And I think Skip's going to have the team ready. They're going to minimize those penalties, and they're going to roll. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to foreshadow for later.
Yeah, if there's like 100 motivation points available in a game, I give Birmingham maybe 35 here because they did come off the loss. I give Michigan close to 0. I really don't see how you wake up for this game knowing you're going to be back in that same stadium next week unless you want to make sure you ball out and get some NFL tape. And of course, guys are competitive, but this is not the spot for Michigan to go absolutely crazy and try to pull this off. Save that one for next week. All right, let's go to the game of the weekend. This is the only matchup of this slate with playoff implications. And yes, we know the teams are already set, but now they're hunting for that home field advantage. It's the Brahmas at the Battlehawks. St. Louis is a 2.5-point home favorite here, total sitting at 42.5. Forecast is not going to apply here to either side because both teams are going to play indoors the rest of the way, no matter what happens, because the championship is in St. Louis. So let's get into this one. 7 weeks ago, which was the last meeting between these two, a 31-24 win by the Battlehawks in the Alamo Dome. And if you remember that, watching that game, it didn't feel like a one-score game to me. You know, the Brahmas scored late. They tried to rally back into it, but you watch it back, and St. Louis was in control from start to finish. And now we go right back to what has become the burning question every single week in the UFL. Will A.J. McCarron play? Will he start? So here's what we know right now, and I'm going to give you everything we do. He's been designated as day-to-day by Anthony Becht. Last week, he served as an emergency backup quarterback to Manny Wilkins, where Becht clarified that they were going to win it or lose it with Manny, and McCarron was only coming in if Wilkins got injured. It was the same story this week as it was last week. McCarron logged a full Tuesday and a full Wednesday practice. We have yet to get the Thursday practice report. We're awaiting that. Might have it by the end of the show if I keep refreshing during break, but we're still waiting on that, and that's a huge piece of information. My gut leans that they probably will just save him for the playoffs, but again, nothing is confirmed yet. What Anthony Becht and the staff feels about how important this game is. They could be super low on it and be like, oh, we won in San Antonio before, we'll do it again. Or they could just be like, whatever, give us the 2 seed. You know, we're going to be fine either way without AJ. Let's just win the 2 games that we need to win at the end of the season. I think you can make a case for both sides. So it's really all about how his ankle is doing too, and if he's even capable of being, you know, you would figure he has to be at least 50% to play. And that's tough because, you know, like if AJ plays, those pass rushers are going out. They're going after him hard. To me, I would just know this going into this if you're looking to bet this game or if you're watching this game as a St. Louis fan. Manny Wilkins is just not going to get the job done against a Brahmas defense that has been so good, leading the lead in sacks. They hold teams to like 33% on third down, which is the best in the league. And it's crazy because AJ had that defense figured out in week 3. They've gotten way better in San Antonio since then. In fact, I would point to week 3 being the turning point where it was by far their worst game. But you can't expect Manny Wilkins to get you home field here, and I'll give it to him. He made enough plays to beat DC, and he fought like hell against Arlington, never gave up at the end of that game, and that's why he ended up throwing a bunch of picks. But he's just not a proven passer. There's just too many weapons on this offense that are being wasted now when he's out there. Think about Hakeem Butler, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year candidate, leading the league in receiving, just 2 catches, 12 yards on 3 targets last week. So just a non-factor. And I'm not going to put all that on Manny Wilkins. I can't squarely blame him. I got to give some credit to that Arlington secondary. But yeah, I don't know if they're able to utilize Pearson and Shepard and an 8-man and some of the guys they have with Wilkins there. San Antonio defensively, worth noting that both of their starting safeties are on the injury report this week, A.J. Hendy and Jordan Mosley. So you could potentially look for a guy like Tease Tabor to step up. He's the third safety there, made a huge play to win the game last week in Mosley's absence. So I feel like it's going to be super tough for this Brahmas defense to hold another team to 9 points, right? We don't see that happening with lightning striking twice. What I do know is St. Louis is not going to score 31 here. I think even if AJ plays, this total to me at 42.5 is probably right around what I'd put it at. So this is tough, guys. Like last time around, wait and see on AJ. We'll do one more quick update before we end, but we're live right now. It's Thursday, and it is currently 7:09 Eastern time, and we don't have it yet. So once we get that, we'll try to update you, and I do have a play on this game potentially if, you know, he's out or if he's in, but this is a wait and see. For the pick, I do like not going to get to the pick yet, but I do like the St. Louis offense here. And before we pick it, I do want to take a look at the San Antonio offense. Chase Garbers, not on the injury report this week, so that's a good sign. Looks like he'll be the guy. Felt like he kind of earned his job back against Birmingham last week. He went out there in the second quarter, did enough, and just looked natural out there in his first game back, made a few plays. So expect him to be back as Quentin Dormady still nurses an injury. It's notable injury at tailback. Anthony McFarland seems to have re-injured that shoulder that he came in last 2 weeks, already rehabbed. He's not practicing again. And he had a really good last 2 weeks, I thought. He was all over the field for them. So Wade Phillips did hint at saving John Lovett last week and kind of holding him out in case they ran into this situation. So Lovett has been back at practice this week. So even if you do lose McFarland, if you get Lovett back, that's huge. Pace him with Juice Ellison, who double dipped as your goal line tailback in the end zone last week, had a good game. So the heartbreaker of the week for San Antonio, who really, as we talked about throughout the year, has been decimated by injuries, was Cody Latimer. They lose a star tight end as a result of that nasty hit by Kenny Robinson in the first quarter. He's done for the season. He finished with 36 catches, 391 yards, and a touchdown, and had really two of the biggest plays of the season for this team. You think back to week 2, he scores the walk-off game winner in that big 20-point comeback against Memphis. And then who was it against? Houston, right? He had that 3-point conversion to tie it up, which allowed San Antonio to then get a fumble recovery on the kickoff and end up winning on a field goal. So this team would be in a very different place if those two wins didn't happen. In fact, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs, I don't believe. I think that would have opened the door for DC. So huge impact there for Cody Latimer. Next man up is Alize Mack, and he's not quite Cody Latimer, but he is one of the few year one Brahmas under Hines Ward that was able to make the team, right? This was a complete roster overhaul. They brought all the Houston guys in. They added some new pieces, but not many guys made the cut from the Brahmas last year, and Alize Mack did. So they clearly see the potential in him. I am excited to see Chase Garbers here. I know he only got 3 quarters last week, so if he is going to start, we'll see what he does. I believe he will. And remember, extra motivation for him because back in week 3, this was the game that Chase Garbers got injured on. So you look at the tape, it was the last drive. He scrambled out of bounds on a 3rd down and could have been flagged for a late hit, but it wasn't. And he ended up hurting his wrist pretty severely. And he played the next play on a 4th down, and you could see it. It just wasn't right. So some motivation for him. For San Antonio, the offense got better on 3rd down last week. They were around 35% coming in. They end up 5 for 11 on conversion. So I was happy with A.J. Smith there. They hit the big plays again, 4 completions of 20 yards or more against Birmingham. And that's important because back in week 3 against St. Louis, they had 0 pass plays of more than 15 yards. So good to see them stretch in the field. I think they could potentially find some holes in a Battlehawks secondary that gave up over 250 yards through the air to Luis Perez and showed that they were beatable last week against Arlington. And they got a lineup against Jontre Kirkland now, who has been on a tear lately, leading the UFL in receptions. So I think we see a bounce back a little bit from the Battlehawks defense. I don't think they'll play as bad as they did last week. And I do expect San Antonio to have another uphill battle to 20 points. But I think, they'll do enough to win this game. I'm so torn on this because, again, it's just an incomplete story. We don't have the full information of the players that impact this game the most, and really the player and A.J. McCarron. But I am going to go San Antonio here, Zook. I just have a feeling that the Brahmas win this one, and then we have the Battlehawks get their revenge in the XFL championship, even if it is in the Alamo Dome next week, if AJ is able to come back. And I see you're riding with me here.
Apparently, the production guy messed this up. I'll talk to Piper later about that. So, yeah, I'll take San Antonio. Not having AJ is, we just don't know.
Yeah, it's too tough to say. And like I said, my gut is that why play him? Right. But I know AJ, if we had him on the show right now, he would say, I want to play 100% one home field.
Sure he does, so. But my concern is they should just, if he's not going to play at all, they should just inactivate him. let Silvers touch the ball a little bit if needed. Because like what you were saying earlier with Manning, I just don't think he's not there. Maybe they split snaps and show something, but
I don't know what
that
the
San
deal with
Antonio
Silvers is. Yeah, I think
San Antonio defense looked pretty damn stout last week. So
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna I mean it's about a 1 on the confidence scale, but I'm gonna go Brahmas, maybe something like, I don't know, 19-17 or something like that. And it's a tough game to bet. I wouldn't bet anything in this game. I'm gonna stay away until I get some more information. Well, if you're with us on the Boulevard tonight, we appreciate that. Again, drop us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want more things like this, we were able to catch up with DC Defenders pass rusher Malik Fisher today. From the Big Apple to the city of brotherly love, and now in the nation's capital in year 2 with the DC Defenders, a defensive end. Welcome to Springball Boulevard, Malik Fisher. Malik, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me. How you doing?
I've been good, man. It's been a pleasure, of course, watching you this year, and it is Throwback Thursday, so I did want to start. Let's take it back to 2021 for a minute. You're a senior at Villanova at that time. You play a game at Penn State, which is my alma mater, and I remember watching you that day and being there and walking away from that game thinking, this is a really good FCS level defense. Penn State couldn't run the ball, couldn't pick up their downs from what I remember. It was close for a while. And then the next week, you guys go knock off number 3 JMU. So that team was for real. When you think about your time at Villanova, what made that 2021 team so special?
Well, I mean, that year we had a close group. You know what I mean? We had a real good group of guys, and we had some ballers, like just some flat out straight ballers. I mean, even up until now, we still got we had Christian Benford, who was a perennial starter for the last 2-3 years in the league for the Bills, and he was a 6th-round draft pick. We had Forrest Ryan, who was a first-team All-American linebacker. He was just one of the leaders of the group. We had another linebacker, Amin Black, a couple young guys that's still there now that's balling, and I was a part of the defense as well. So we really did truly have a lot of ballers, and just the way that we played and the culture that was built at Nova has always been defensively minded, defensively set. When I was getting recruited, they were the #1 defense, and they had guys like Tano Passigno, and it always starts with stopping the run. And we played a 3-3, so everything was about just clogging those holes up. You know what I mean? I played 4-eye in college. So I was basically damn near D tackle for most of my time in college. But that's what it was all about. And we went up there to the state. We was trying to make it happen. You know,
It was close for a while, man. It was I was sweating.
It was a good game. It was a close one, but I mean, playing in that stadium was crazy. That was a day that I definitely remember, because 100,000, you showing up. I mean, you gotta drop it. You can't let no piss run down your leg. You gotta own up to the fight. And I think we did that day, and that was a good game for us.
Yeah, certainly gained some confidence from that one, because, you go out the next week, knock off number 3 JMU. And a lot of people forget FCS actually had a shortened spring season earlier in 2021 because fall 2020 got completely wiped out due to COVID. So you ended up playing like 17 games in that calendar year. What was that like? And did that prepare you for this spring football grind now?
So that was definitely different, especially the spring season when we came in playing. And honestly, in a way that I may not have understood, but a lot of people may not have understood as well, it did prepare me, as I would have not known that I would have to play in the spring later. Because honestly, going into that spring season, it felt a little off. I let the yearly schedule throw me off from how I naturally thought of football, or nobody's worried about this right now because you're playing in the spring. But honestly, it taught me, like, it doesn't matter when you playing or where you playing. If you playing ball, you better show up. And I think that's something that was an underlying thing that I carried on. And when I finally got back into playing professionally in the spring last year for the DC Defenders, because at that point I was coming off of a couple injuries as well. Like when I left school, I had got injured. Not really injured. I was playing through injury, but I got surgery right after I left Nova, like a yearly ending, like finally get something fixed up in my shoulder. And then I went 6 months. I had no pro day. And I had a couple of little looks and stuff. And then I went to rookie minicamp with the Saints. And that's what opened up the opportunity for DC to find me. And after that, I got surgery again 6 months before the XFL season to start last year. And I got cleared. And then that's when I finally was able to wash my hand with all injuries. And it was like, all right, from now on, we had nothing to worry about. Let's build, let's ball. And that's kind of why last year was really like a red shirt year for me. Get better, learn the ropes, play on special teams, just find a way, but really learn and get better. And I was able to pick up a lot from a lot of the guys that we had in the room. And then I took that into the summer and the offseason that we had this past summer. It was the merger. It was so much going on. And it kind of reminded me of how COVID was, all the unknowns. And instead of getting lost in the unknowns, I had already learned a lot from just knowing that no matter when you play or when you're showing up, you better be ready. And I think that was a big thing that I learned from that time that allowed me to carry it on and, you know what I mean, taking advantage of now. And honestly, I see the type of growth that it would allow me to get, you feel me? So I actually do think that there was some benefit in that little awkwardness that we had going on during that COVID time.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it. And that was a little bit about your background. Let's get into the present now, as you were kind of hinting at. You lead DC in sacks with 6. That's also good for 3rd in the entire UFL.
7, actually.
You got a 7?
Correct. Yeah, they didn't give me credit. It was crazy. They put 2 team, but only gave 1 individual to Deontay. I is the second player, the 3rd, so I'm at 7 actually. And then they took back, 1 got taken back from a holding, but I am at 7. That got corrected. Yeah,
I do remember last year with a guy like Pita Taumopenu, he had like 3 more sacks than they marked him for. So now you're the guy that's getting shortchanged on the sack. So yeah, leading them with 7. It's been a breakout season for you. You're 3rd on the team in tackles. How do you go from sort of that rotational piece in year 1 to becoming the best pass rusher on the team in year 2?
So I mean, a big part about it is just benefiting from the pass rushers and the talent that we have in the room. I mean, we have so many players that rush differently, but all rush great. And even last year, we had even more guys. And a big part about it was the culture and the vibe that we have in the room is just always learning from each other. Somebody sees you do this rush. It's nothing where they're trying to send shots at you. They may be like, yo, bro, I see you false stepping before you rush. Fix that up. Or bro, when you cross chop and do this. And I think we're able to benefit and learn and teach a lot from each other. And especially last year, there was so much less pressure on me not having to be the guy that I was able to take that time to really learn, to really work on stuff, to really not be as good at what I want to be, but actually be able to try it without having to worry about it working because I wasn't the first or second guy going in. I was just rotational. And having that time to really learn and watch how guys were rushing. And then those guys being open, David Bellamy, Andre Mintz. This year we had Trent Harris coming. He helped me out with a lot of stuff. For Dahl Brown, we had last year. These are all guys that, unlike me, have NFL experience, have been in NFL buildings, and being able to benefit and learn from everything that they have is what actually, honestly, was a big part of allowing me to grow into who I could be with my athletic ability and my natural talents that I brought. But like I said, I played 4I in college. So it was a quick transition to just be out on the edge rather than being inside. So it was a big part of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you and Andre Mintz, kind of 2 of the younger guys in the room. I mean, even looking interior, a guy like TJ Barnes, 33 years old. Like there's some seasoned vets in that room, and I'm sure that helps. And I'm sure it's been a little bittersweet for you this season because you're accomplishing a lot of your individual goals, but some of the team goals have unfortunately fallen short. And it's not over yet. Do have Arlington with a chance to get to 500 this week. But when you look back at this season and you do some reflection, what positives can you take away even though you're not heading to the playoffs?
I mean, a big part of anything that you do when you're playing professionally is you got the opportunity to play. And I think that's what we show up every week and say, we have an opportunity to play. And then we also are representing ourselves anytime that we put ourselves on the field. We have our name on the jersey, on the back of our jerseys. And the thing is, just to take away positive is understanding that no matter what the circumstances are and may continue to be until the season is over, being able to show myself that I have been able to show up, continue to put in the work, you know what I mean? Continue to perform at a level no matter the circumstance. And I think that shows a lot. And I feel like for me, seeing that growth and opening myself into the player that I know I've always been able to be. And I've had it before. I've been a playmaker before in college. I think I had like 23 or 24 sacks out of a 4I in college. You know what I mean? So I've been making plays, but being able to recapture that and actually grasp hold of that, it's been a big thing to take away from this season for me. And I think that no matter the circumstance, we always still have to show up and perform. And I feel like that's something that I've been able to prove and show that I could do.
Yeah, and you talk about some of the returning guys. I mean, you were one of 28 returning players coming back to DC this year, which was actually a league high. And the idea was to keep a winning roster intact. Now, while that was going on, the rest of the league was trying to catch up to that DC standard over the offseason. And Anthony Beck literally came out and said in a press conference that St. Louis was constructing that roster to beat DC, and they were focused on that. So, what does that feel like when there's kind of a target on your back from day one? And what do you identify as some of the things that the team maybe could have done better to make the playoffs?
Well, I mean, coming into any season, and especially from us coming from last year, the standard is always set. The standard's been set, and the standard is still the same. And as we brought a lot of our guys, the guys back through the merge and everything, that was the big thing, to make sure that we knew the standards that were set, that we had anchors. And a part of when the season happens, goes on and goes along, I mean, everybody's always trying to catch up, and especially the fire that we had last year. But I think the big thing is just capitalizing on opportunities in the midst of each actual game, forgetting about the off season and how things were built, forgetting about last season. But one thing that I think that we all could do better is just capitalizing on individual opportunities in the games. All of these games in this league are always going to be close. You know, there's the 4th and 12s, there's this 2-minute comebacks that's always happening. And the teams that are in position to go to the playoffs now, maybe you see San Antonio, they've won 2 or 3 really close games in the fourth quarter. That's really the difference. And last year for us, we won a lot of close fourth quarter games. The first game won against Seattle at the goal line. You know what I mean? A lot of games against St. Louis throughout the season. So I think one of the big differences is just not having been able to capitalize on those individual moments and kind of finding out how and why those weren't beneficial for us without trying to second guess the decisions that were made when it comes to personnel and things like that, because we always gonna bring our best every shot, but we got to capitalize in game. And I think that's been the biggest difference of just those little moments, maybe a 4th down here and there, 3rd down. And so that's true. The difference between the season.
It's a game of inches. And I was talking to Birmingham head coach Skip Holtz in a press conference after they lost to San Antonio. And he mentioned, listen, we didn't come out beating our chest that we were 8-0. We were 3 plays away from being 5-3. And, you know, this is a humbling experience. And he said the rest of the league's in the same position. You know, a couple of swing plays away, bounce a ball, game of inches, things like that. And
yeah, it's been even our game against Birmingham. We go up 2 points or something with less than a minute left or around a minute left. But you got to capitalize on that lead. So a bunch of those are really the small in between the line plays and things like that really lead to a record being 3 losses less or 3 losses more than what we need to make it to the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one more opportunity here with the Renegades. I think a lot of people are sort of sleeping on the matchup this week. I know I'm calling it the TJ Barnes Bowl. I know he'll be fired up to play in this one. And, you know, both teams coming off dominant wins last week where DC dropped 36. I think Arlington dropped 36. So this is not only a rematch.
We got a special guest, man.
There he is. What's up, Greg? Come get some, baby. That's the man right there. And, yeah, I mean, you guys are tasked with Arlington this week. Like I said, not only a rematch of last year's XFL title game, but, you know, last time you guys met, week 3, you stormed back from down 10 to win an incredible game, one of the finishes of the UFL season. So what's been kind of the focus in film this week? What challenges does their offense present, either specific players or like things they do well?
Yeah, so I mean, we know Arlington well. We played them 3 times last year. This year is going to be the fifth overall matchup, but then the second time this year. And I mean, even the game that we played them this year, we came out on top, but they played really well. They had a lot of passing yards, some good rushing yards. They were up late in the fourth quarter on us. And just in general, we know that they're led by Luis Perez. You know what I mean? He gets the ball out. He knows where he's going. He's a seasoned veteran. So just facing someone like that, who, as much as we know them, he knows us as well. You know what I mean? He can know a lot of stuff that we're doing. So a big thing is just finding ways for us, as always, the D-line to try to get pressure as well. You know what I mean? Relieve some stress on the DBs. And also always stopping the run. You feel me? And they do a lot of running. Unlike a lot of other teams in the league, they are a little more pro style. They like to get their offense started with some running, some 12 personnel, some 13 personnel. They love their tight ends in different situations. So minimizing a lot of those situations when it comes to early downs and a run to get them in situations where we can make them one-dimensional is always going to be the plan for a team like them, and especially a quarterback like Luis Perez because he's good as himself.
Absolutely. And focusing on you personally, this is the last one before we'll let you get back to work with Greg there. You talked about guys like Davin Bellamy, Trent Harris, like a Derek Roberson, and TJ Barnes, the seasoned veterans in this room, kind of bringing you along and taking you under their wing. You have one more NFL audition tape now in this UFL season to take advantage of. Do you personally feel more confident in your NFL chances coming out of this season than you did last year? And what is the long-term plan for Malik Fisher once Springball wraps up?
So yeah, I mean, definitely a big part of what's beneficial with being in Springball and actually playing in this time is that I've been able to get better through live reps. You know what I mean? I've been in the fire. I've been in real games. I've been getting better in real games. I've been performing through live reps. I've been productive in live reps. So rolling that over into building a resume for me to get another NFL opportunity is knowing that the confidence that I have from actually truly playing at the professional level already prior to actually fully being in a building will actually take me as far as I need to in the sense of having that confidence when I'm in a building, knowing that I could rush, actually coming with a plan to rush and perform on the spot. Because whenever I get an opportunity and whenever I show up, they're going to want that performance. They're going to want to see those wins on the rushes. And I've been able to actually craft and build up enough in my bag, my pass rushing bag, to confidently go in and rush. And for me, I feel like the last 2 years were one more of the most beneficial ones for me because I've been able to do that for myself. I've been able to get better in a way that's proven a lot to me, myself, where I don't doubt too many things in my game. So I'll be going into a building with so much confidence, you know what I mean? And hopefully the 2 years that I've done here will send me off in a way that I could get an opportunity coming out of this season. And hopefully I could be one of the good tale stories for spring football and start extending and building my own career at the next level in the NFL. And showing other people that spring ball is definitely beneficial and it's the perfect place to actually go and get better when you do the right things here. In the event that that's not, then I know exactly where I have a home at and where I can come back to and where I could perform and make plays at. You feel me? So in a big way, I'm appreciative for the last 2 years and everything I've been able to been picked up on, grow through. Personally too, you know what I mean? It's been a big part of my maturing process. I'm only 25 too, and that's one of my biggest things. I'm still young, one of the youngest players, and I've always felt like one of the unknowns, and I'm starting to feel like that's one of the best things because as your name starts to pop, and it's like, well, who is this kid? If you don't know me, bring me in the building and come see about it. You know what I mean? And let me show you something. So that's to anybody out there that I would love that opportunity to get back into the NFL building and have an opportunity to make my name out there.
Yeah, and if any NFL scouts were in the building in Audi Field for that St. Louis game, they only had to stay for about 2 drives to learn your name because first 2 drives you had 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So if that's all they stayed for, they had a whole tape of footage there. That's Malik Fisher.
Put it on tape.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you put it on tape and it pops, that's what you need. So that was a good game. I love having that feeling out there that day too. And for the whole season, it always feels good making plays. And I've had to be patient, take my time, and wait. So when I make some of those plays, I jump up. I got my celebrations going, and there's a lot of passion in it because it's worth a lot when you put the work in for it. You know what I mean?
That is Malik Fisher. Catch him setting up camp in a backfield near you Sunday at noon on ABC against the Renegades. Appreciate your time, Malik. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Great to catch up with Malik there. Super insightful conversation. You could tell he's definitely become one of the leaders of that DC defense. And yeah, one of the younger guys on that line, but definitely going to be a candidate for all UFL considering he has 7 sacks, not 6. You might see 6 on the website, but he made sure to correct us. It was 7 sacks, which puts him 3rd in the league. Just a monster year.
You see how big his hands are? Oh, boy.
I would not. 6'4", 245. I mean, coming off the edge. Good luck.
You want to get gripped up by that?
Good luck this week, Luis Perez. So we have a pretty unique situation this week because Saturday you've got the 4 playoff teams featured, and then Sunday we'll see the four squads who are frankly ready to get back on the golf course at this point. It's the Renegades at the Defenders. DC, a 2.5-point home favorite here. I actually think it just came down even more to 2. So total here is 46.5, which is the highest of the weekend forecast for the district, 80 and cloudy with a 40% chance of rain showers. So if you could care less about this game like Chris Zook, let me try to sell you on it because first off, I guess I hope the weather holds up because I do want to see some Defenders faithful out there, and we could be in for some offense as well in this game. When DC and Arlington hook up, it means points. They've averaged 57 total points in all the meetings that they've had combined between the two. These offenses are averaging a whopping 363 yards of total offense per game against each other. So buckle up for this one. I mean, last meeting, DC storms all the way back from down 10 in the fourth quarter. They get a Matt McCrane game winner, just an electric game to get a little bit of revenge for the championship. I'm not going to go as far as saying that it satisfied me and saying, oh, we're better now, but this would be nice to get the season sweep of the Renegades after ruining the dreams of the championship last year. So let's focus on the DC offense. They had their best game of the season against dreadful Memphis, so really no surprise there. But to me, this was more than just pounding a dead team because it felt like they did try some new things. They had some more first down passes. They had some more ways to get guys in space. Use Kiki QT a little more on some reverses, more RPO game for Jordan, give him an opportunity to make the right reads, and he did just that. Wanted to highlight Jake Tribby of Fantasy Points highlighted Jordan's effectiveness against the bottom 2 pass defenses. When he plays against the bottom 2 pass defenses, he has double the fantasy points than he would against the tougher secondary. So just looking at that, I mean, obviously Arlington is a bottom 2 pass defense. So really, I just love the over here. And Arlington's secondary does deserve some credit. They did hold Hakeem Butler to just 2 catches for 12 yards last week. They got 3 picks. Took one of them back for 6, but it's not Manny Wilkins that you're going against this week. This is a different situation. You get the 2-dimensional Tamu, who can run and throw and just poses a real threat against the 7th-ranked total defense in the UFL out of, 8 teams in the league, so they're second worst. And I expect Fred Keist to stick with what has worked here. Last 2 weeks, offense kind of looked night and day from the Michigan game, which still haunts me in my sleep, remembering how much was on the line that day at home against the Panthers, and they just laid an egg. Bounced back a little bit. No, they didn't get the win against St. Louis, but offense looked better, and then last week against Memphis, clicking on all cylinders. So Darius Higgins, the starting running back, limited in practice this week, but he should be good to go. The receivers have been healthy since they lost Kelvin Harmon. They did lose a starting left guard, Lamont Gillard, to IR, and the line has been shifting around pretty banged up all year, but not too worried about that in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see a pretty big day here from Jordan Tamu and, of course, Ty Scott as well, who has filled in nicely for Harmon. Teams have really ran the ball well, it seems, on Arlington all season long. And I've pointed out before, specifically mobile quarterbacks have had success against this defense. We saw what Jordan did against them in week 3. They've had some issues with spies and being able to stop a quarterback who can either do RPOs or even Manny Wilkins, I think, last week scrambled for a bunch of yards against them. So question becomes, can we finally get in a 100-yard rushing game out of Darius Higgins or even Cam Harris? I mean, I want to see that because it's your last chance to do it, and it's crazy to me, all the yards that Abram Smith put up last year in this offense. I think he had like at least 5 or 6 games over 100 yards, and they just haven't been able to get one guy, I believe, over 100 yards. They went over 100 as a team, but I'm pretty sure they haven't had a 100-yard rusher individual yet. So I want to see that. When we look at Arlington offensively, I'm just truly blown away by the difference here between the on-paper numbers and then the on-field results of being 2-7. 32.5 points per game in the last 3 for the Renegades, which they're 2-1. I was honestly pretty shocked DC was the favorite here. In fact, I think I even mentioned Sunday night that I would grab them as a dog. I thought maybe 2 or 3 point dog, but I just don't want to lay the points with them because Arlington's a good team. And I could see this getting to around a pick 'em by close of this line. The Renegades have actually been a super popular team to bet for the Sharps the last couple weeks, which kind of puts our Renegades narrative to bed. I won't do it, but to me, I mean, the bettors are loving it, and you're seeing a lot of line movement with their games. It's going as many as 4 or 5 points in their direction, so money's coming in. And I guess when Sharps are looking at this team's profile with their computer models, their computers are falling in love with this team because all the data looks great. I mean, you have Luis Perez quietly being an Offensive Player of the Year candidate. He made the St. Louis secondary look silly, and they were the #1 pass defense in the league. And not even Adrian Martinez had that kind of success against St. Louis. I mean, he played well, but Luis Perez was on another level last week, and that's why Malik Fisher brings him up, right? He's the first thing you think about. So he's a gamer, and he really knows what Greg Williams is about to throw at him because we talked about this last year at length, Zook. Luis Perez went against DC 4 times. He faced him twice with Vegas, and he played him again twice with Arlington. So this is unreal how much he knows and how much he's prepared for DC, and he's pissed off about what happened in week 3 because the offense did enough and the defense blew the game. Renegades are limping a little bit in the receiving core. They lose Javonte Payton to the IR. Thought he had a pretty fantastic season. 23 catches, 279 yards, and 5 touchdowns. His backup, Isaiah Winstead, who came in and had a good game against St. Louis last week, was also injured in his relief, and he hasn't practiced. Also, Tyler Vaughns and Sal Cannella are limited. Not sure if that's a load management thing, but something to keep an eye on. I do expect those guys to play. Not sure about Winstead, but I think Vaughns and Cannella will go. But that could really open the door for a guy like Deontay Burnett, who I looked today, 29 catches on 39 targets. That's got to be one of the best conversion rates in the league. That's really good to have all those receptions and not really be targeted all that much. He's very reliable. So for DC defensively, they're just as hobbled in the secondary. Starting corner Michael Joseph was out last week, so they put Nidair Rouse in to back him up, and now he's hurt. So DC's about to be super thin at corner. They're going to end up having to move one of the outside corners to the slot, which could be a disaster when you think about a guy like Sal Cannella. They're also missing a safety. I know at times Greg Williams liked to put a safety one-on-one in man against Cannella. Now you don't really have Santos Ramirez to do that anymore. It's a banged up secondary, and it kind of cancels out those Arlington receivers being injured. So that's why I'm still confident in the over. These are 2 of the worst 3 scoring defenses in the league. They can't stop the run. DC gives up 125 a game on the ground. Arlington giving up 115 game on the ground. Believe it or not, those rush defenses are both even worse than Memphis. So I guess one bright spot, DC does have the 2nd-ranked pass defense, but again, not much of a rotation to corner at corner and safety to work with. You're going to have to play all your starters, and they'd like to do that 4-2-5 look. So guys are going to be out on the field for a long time, especially if Perez can sustain drives. I do expect a 27-24 type of game here. I don't think it's worth betting on either side, but I do love the over. The over is a great play. And I'm going to go ahead and pick DC one last time. It's bittersweet for me. 10 for 10 on DC picks this year as far as picking them. So, which means we'll see. Do I end up 5-5? Do I end up 4-6? I just know I never picked against them, and I never will. So you can pretty much make that fresh box a permanent thing. So I can lock that one in for next year as well.
Yeah, you're a homer. It is what it is. I'll take Arlington.
I knew it. Back on the Renegades, huh? Just like that.
I didn't say I was betting.
I think
on
you
them.
picked them the last 2 weeks straight, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember you were pretty confident when they played San Antonio. That was a tough loss for them. But then you did hit when they beat Memphis, obviously. And then last week,
so did you when DC beat Memphis.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's not much to say. This is one of them games. Who's going to be the what? That's all I gotta say.
High scoring.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like the over.
Yeah, I think it could definitely get over here for sure. Like I said, 57 average total points in this matchup. So I like hammer in the over here, maybe even a 2-unit play. Let's wrap up the weekend with the absolute sicko special. And, back in week 7 when Arlington played against Memphis and it was 0-6 against, I think, 1-5 or whatever it was, it turns out there was a way to somehow top even that game. It's the 1-8 Roughnecks against the 1-8 Showboats. Houston, the short 2-point road favorite here, totals at 44.5. Forecast for Memphis looking like 77 and partly cloudy. This is our latest kick time the entire season at 7 p.m. Eastern. So last meeting was the Boats' lone win. It was an 18-12 win in Houston week 1. So let's take a look at some of those highlights from back in week 1. I call it whatever you want here. I don't know. What are we naming this? The toilet bowl? You could call it the crap cup.
TPG bowl.
The stink off. It's just know the winner of this one is going to be awarded the number 1 draft pick and will officially be on the clock for the 2025 UFL draft. I'm honestly more interested in debating who that pick is going to be than I am breaking down this game. But as Zook just alluded to, we have an absolute nutcase on our show who decided to bet on this. So I'm going to do my best for this breakdown. Memphis stinks. I'm over talking about it. I say the same thing every week. Now they're starting a 3rd-string quarterback. Absolute nightmare. And, Houston is also cheeks. So what do we even talk about with this one, Zook? Help me out here. I mean, this is game 40 of 40 in the regular season, and this is the one I want to fast forward through because I'm just going to be reaching. I guess when you look at it, Houston has been, I guess, less atrocious than Memphis, even though the Showboats did beat him back in week 1. Roughnecks had 2 promising games with Nolan Henderson back there as the trigger man, who, much like Memphis, Josh Love is started the year as the QB3. These players in this one obviously care more about that last chance to get some NFL film than they do about the number 1 draft pick, right? Because if you're a Showboat or a Roughneck, you're thinking, I don't care about the number 1 pick. That's just another guy who can replace me and get my ass cut next year. So the hell with that. I'm playing for myself in this one. Think about it. Who are we picking at number 1? Like Josh Gordon ain't walking through that door, right? Ben DiNucci? You never know. So this is for the fans. This is why the UFL is doing this. I guess a silver lining for the Roughnecks is Justin Hall. He's actually only 1 catch back from Jontre Kirkland for the league lead in receptions. It's out of Ball State. He has 48 catches for 534 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's almost a lock for an all UFL spot. He's been magnificent. He's the best player on this offense, and everybody thought it was going to be Mark Thompson. He was on the trailer coming in, and everyone said he was going to have an 1,000-yard season. Well, it's been Justin Hall. I think he'll have another huge game, and he's in reach of that UFL receiving title. He's only 84 yards back of Hakeem Butler. So if he goes off like many receivers have against Memphis and has, a 150, 200-yard day, maybe he catches up to Butler. I do give an edge to the Roughnecks offense here. You look at them the last couple weeks. I guess they've been entertaining, right? They had 28 in a weird game against Birmingham where you just kept wondering what the Stallions were doing on defense. They were just sleeping through the game. And Houston, give them credit. Like, they played a really good game that night, and then they sort of parlayed that into another great start last week against Michigan. And it's crazy that they had a shot to go 2-0 against the best 2 teams in their conference, and they were just a couple bounces of the ball away. And, even looking at other games in the season, the San Antonio debacle, like, they've actually been competitive against the top teams in the league. So last couple weeks, they're putting up 295 yards a game average with Nolan Henderson, which is night and day from what they did in the beginning of the season. So I do give the edge to the Houston offense here. We mentioned Memphis going with QB3 this week, Josh Love. good for him, I guess. I'm happy for Josh that he's getting his opportunity, but oh boy, get ready to taste some turf here. Memphis, if I'm Memphis, I would just be running the wild boat. Maybe you could call it like the sailboat and just put Darius Victor back there in the gun. Can you imagine that? Darius Victor in the gun, just running head downhill straight into the nose tackle and just, see who falls over first. Or can you imagine Darius Victor throwing a pass at 5'5"? That would be something to see. That'd be a sight I want to see. This is the kind of game I want to get weird. I want to get real sick when I'm watching this game because it's. I mean, I don't know. Zook, do the Roughnecks have a mascot? No word of a lie. This is actually funny. So I'm taking my trash out yesterday. I swear to you, this is not made up. The lid of my trash can says Roughneck. I swear, I will take a picture and tweet that out. And it made me not want to bet Houston this week. It's just bad vibes. I can't do it. I have things that happen during the week that I don't want to make bets. That was one of them. I don't know. I guess Memphis has a mascot. Maybe that's a reason to bet them if you're TPG. The short of it is, I don't trust Houston's defense anymore. The numbers are decent. They're top half against the run. They're number 3 in takeaways. Surprisingly, they're dead last in sacks. And I guess they'll have a chance to turn that around against a poor Memphis offensive line. But the problem I see, they could have been 2-0, like I said, the last few weeks, and the defense really choked the game away. So while I'm not about to put that whole 1-8 season on them because it took the offense all this time through 8 weeks to finally get going, I mean, you're seeing that swing now where the defense was the one keeping them in games. Now the offense is doing their part, but the defense can't respond now. So it's been just up and down. They did lose their leader, Reuben Foster, a few weeks back. That didn't help. Gabe Sewell was another starting linebacker on this team that's out. So I don't know. This would normally look like a pretty great underspot. And Zook and I had talked about that. And then, we both kind of realized it doesn't have any appeal because Houston's defense has given up an average of 330 yards a game the last 2 weeks. And I know Josh Love isn't Adrian Martinez or Bryce Perkins, but I just think we could see a decent enough game from the Memphis offense, who has capable receivers with like Davis and Adams and Papali. So I'm staying far away from this one from a betting perspective. Zook is going to make me do a pick here for the graphic. I guess I talked more glowingly of Houston, even though I said that they were a trash can lid. Flip a coin, Houston, I guess. I don't know. This is just, like I said, I'm more interested in debating the number 1 pick, Zook, than who's going to win this game.
I agree. I'll take Houston, and let's talk about that. So this game is for the number 1 pick. Winner, right?
Yeah.
Winner gets it. What happens if DC beats Arlington and they're still 2-8?
Doesn't matter.
Why?
Because they're doing this. I don't know. Like this is the explanation we got. We got a video from Moose Johnston that came out the other day.
Watched it myself. Didn't understand it.
There wasn't.
You.
Yeah, there wasn't a press release.
But
like anything was official yet.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. Like they said in the video that the winner
gets first pick.
Right, gets the first pick in every round. But they never put. It's weird that they didn't put a press release out because usually for something they would make it official in writing. Johnston hinted at this. It's something they did, I guess, in USFL year 1. 20. I guess that was what 2022.
Sure, but
yeah.
I'm just trying to think back to the games. Like, who cares about this game? Think back to the games. Like, how would this game trump what Arlington does?
I guess Houston beat Arlington. That's one way to look at it. If you're trying to reward a team instead of doing the NFL way, right? Like if you're trying to anti-tank, which this could be here, and do that kind of thing, then
yeah, but it doesn't make sense. I want to know more the math on this one.
There is no math. It's just hey, he decided to do this to try to make the game interesting in Sunday night on primetime. But like I think the best point is the players don't care about the number 1 draft pick. I mean, maybe some of them are like, oh, I'll definitely be back next year, but who wants to be replaced? Like these guys are fighting for their roster spots.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want some hotshot number 1 pick coming in, and now all of a sudden, they're going to be super high on this guy. And yeah, you want the team to be better, of course, but like this is different than the NFL. This isn't like, oh, great, we got the number 1 pick. Like we're all welcoming him into the locker room, and we have our contracts already. Like nobody's guaranteed anything in this league. So yeah, that's a little interesting to me. We'll see how it all plays out, but I guess it does add a little bit of juice for the fans, and it'll provide for some good social media content for sure. So no Battle of the Brands tour this weekend because the XFL has officially clinched the season series at 9-7. Interesting exchange on Twitter. I tweeted out a little XFL hype video that sort of
X gonna give it to you.
It walked him. I don't want to get demonetized here by playing it on the air, but go check out my Twitter for that from a few days back. That was a lot of fun to put together. It kind of showed each of the 9 wins that the XFL had, starting down 2-0 in week 1 and then rallying all the way back. And Scooby Wright, linebacker for the Stallions, who was out with an injury a few weeks ago, had a tweet from after week 1 when they beat Arlington, and he tweeted at Pat McAfee, and he said, USFL's better, you jabroni. And it blew up and got a bunch of likes. So, yeah, we kept the receipt. We went back, and Scooby was a great sport about it, man. I have to give Scooby all the credit. He was like, I can't even be mad about this. He's like, I'm not going to delete the tweet. Like, as they see, this is what makes this league fun. I don't want to hear, and people want to be toxic in the replies. You could tell, like, Scooby Wright, he had no reason to be mad about it, right? Like, when you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're right, you're right. I've been wrong before. I'm not going to go delete my tweets. But the toxic people in the replies that are so mad about this, like, they're showing their true colors here. And that's just like when you have the player himself, like, not caring and being like, oh, you got me here. And then you have the scumbags on Twitter who are like, oh, this doesn't count because the championship wasn't played yet and Birmingham runs the league. It's like, you guys are so mad that you were up 2-0 and then blew it.
He understands gamesmanship.
Right. And we didn't do anything over the top, right? We
I didn't
celebrated.
do a thing.
I took a victory lap, right? Like we weren't going to take a victory lap, right? Come on, after everything we went through the first 2 weeks, I mean, I had enough DMs to literally frame pictures around my entire house of people that were coming after me. But, ultimately, I wanted to share the Scooby one because I knew, right, he could take it. Just like we can take it. So keep it coming. Keep it coming because we still got a championship game to play. Anyway, no Battle of the Brand store. We'll be back for the UFL championship in St. Louis, which will be for all the marbles. That should be the best episode that we have yet. Speaking of best, let's go into best bets. Kind of a weird week for us. I am going to hop on, like I said, that DC and Arlington over 46.5, as I'm going to pull up one more time here. See if we have a depth chart for St. Louis and San Antonio. We do not.
Of course not.
Let's see if we have an injury report. We do not. So I'm not going to add a play and send Zook into a frenzy to add a play for me here. But
yeah, I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. Let's go Renegades DC over 46.5. That's enough for me this week.
And then in the toilet paper game. Oh, I mean TPG picks.
Toilet paper game. TPG, the toilet paper game? Is that what we're doing? That's a good one, Zook. Listen, TPG, I know you're listening out there. I actually don't hate the pick, and I had considered it early in the week until I just thought more about this game, and I'm like, oh, what a disaster this could end up being.
Could be.
But he's got the guts to do it, and he is a complete degenerate for it. But, we're not any better. I've bet on Vegas and Orlando.
Hopefully he makes some money.
I'm rooting for a 3-0 week. We have one more chance to do a regular season sweep, and that's going to end with you, my friend. What you got?
That's the best I could do. I don't know. Yours was way better. I'll take the ponies -8.
Mine sounds more like Scooby-Doo.
Kind of. Ruh-roh. We're playing Michigan.
What are we doing this week? I mean, we're ready for the playoffs, folks. If you can't tell,
we're ready. I'll take -8.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is a 12-point game minimum for the Stallions.
It's crazy to see 8.5 last week in San Antonio, 8 against Michigan. Like, you can't ever just get one with Birmingham where it's like 2.5 or 3, and like everybody jumps on it. Like they're making you like lay a lot of points in these situations. But I guess
I like this play a lot. I do. I think I probably wouldn't bet this. And this is something that you say about me that I don't normally bet based off of what happened last week.
You have a short-term memory. Yeah.
I bet what I feel, but I feel that the Stallions are going to be super pissed about losing.
I think so.
And they're going to come out and they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Like I said, motivation bar, if there wasn't any, now there is a little bit because you did lose. It's worth noting if you want to tail Zook, a piece of information that's going to benefit him. Mike Nolan did say that they're really banged up, and Michigan has the most guys on the injury report that they've had all season. I think like 12 or 13 guys. Some of them not practicing at all, some of them limited. And he said he doesn't even know if he wants them back because what are we doing? What are we playing for? You know, we have to win by 23 to get the opportunity to kick or receive. I mean, what's there to play for here other than pride? So, yeah, I think coaches and players will have a different mindset. And I'm interested to see, Zook, if that will lead to some interesting all-access moments because you're going to have players who want to play. They don't care. You're going to have coaches who are like, sit down. We need you for next week. How's that going to go? We'll have to see. Well, let's get into DFS with TPG.
Stardom, Mark Thompson. Heading into the final week of the season, Thompson squares off against the Showboats, who couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. Over the past 2 weeks, Houston has found a spark on the offensive side of the ball, and they will continue to have success against a defense who gives up the most points and yards per game. I believe Thompson is poised for a breakout week and will be able to put a bow on an otherwise struggling season for the Roughnecks. Start Mark Thompson. Sit 'em, Bryce Perkins. Coming off his best performance of the year, Perkins faces off against the Stallion squad, who will be looking to bounce back after suffering their first loss of the season. Running a multi-quarterback system has worked thus far for the Panthers, but there is no guarantee that Perkins will get the majority of the reps. I really love Birmingham in this spot, and their front seven will simply be too much for the Panthers to handle, as they will be providing pressure and forcing turnovers all afternoon. Sit Bryce Perkins. Sleeper, Alizé Mack. Mack has big shoes to fill as he finds himself in the starting lineup with the recent injury to Cody Latimer, who will miss the remainder of the season. But Mack has an opportunity to make a big impact on the offensive side of the ball, as the Battlehawks defense allowed more than 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to the tight end position a week ago. With the return of Chase Garbers, Mack will be a viable target for him over the middle of the field in a game to clinch home field advantage for the first round of the playoffs. Sleeper, Alizé Mack.
Love the sleeper this week at 2,800. That's got to be one of the cheapest players in the pool. And I think my favorite part of that was seeing the highlights of Jack Cohn. Remember old Moan for Cohn?
Oh,
Bringing back some good memories. Yeah.
I was like in the cash shooting out of that thing, you know?
Yeah.
That was nice.
On media day for the UFL. Well, TPG, one last shot with a full DFS slate here. I kind of like the way he's going. I don't know if Bryce Perkins is going to start. We'll see. Again, I just checked again because I've been refreshing here in real time. We do not know if AJ McCarron is going to play.
TPG got a spot on my production crew if needed. If this DFS
after you just called him toilet paper game. Toilet paper game.
If this DFS thing don't work out,
yeah,
we got you.
Yeah, he made an appearance a few weeks ago, and he was looking pretty bouncy, some would say. For the producer, director, and owner of Studio Z, Chris Zook, and the People's Gambler, I am Matty Fresh. Guys, this is it. This is the last week of 4 games in the UFL. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's been such a quick ride from the end of March now to the end of May. We're about to flip the calendar into June. And unlike last year, we do not have a week off. So we're rolling right in to playoff previews. We're rolling right into the Freshie Awards. Yes, they will be back. Of course, we're going to have a recap of everything from Week 10 on Sunday night as we usually do. But next week for us, I promise you, you're going to want to tune into Springball Boulevard because we're going to be doing all the superlatives. We might have a special appearance from somebody. And we're going to be doing a full jam-packed playoff preview to lead us in to the USFL and XFL Conference Championship. So tell a friend and subscribe to the channel. I'm Matty Fresh, and you always remember, there is no such thing as football season. We'll see you Sunday night.